We got some Arizona Fall League performances to catch up on, and also our first update of the team top prospect lists, the Seattle Mariners. That's been live for a little bit, but it's time for us to talk about the movers in that Mariners top prospect list. And with the way things have gone recently, just coming up a little bit short, give Mariners fans a little bit of something to look forward to and get excited about here if they want to hear that. Of course, Aram and Jack McMullen. Jack, it feels like between every time we record, Esmerlyn Valdez hits like three more homers. So we're like, we just talked about Esmerlyn. Like, did you want to talk about him again? I know you and Elijah talked about him. That's what you were saying to me before we recorded. And I'm like, well, he did homer like three more times since then. So I think we probably got to check in.
So I am curious where you stand on Esmerlyn Valdez because going into the Arizona Fall League last year, it's not that you were low on Josue Briseño. It's just you didn't really think that he was a top 100 prospect in any light. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he hits 9, 10 homers in the AFL and he catapults his way into the top 100 because you realize that the power production could be undeniable. You didn't really see that previously over the course of his 24 regular season. And then he gets to the fall league and you say, oh, wow, that's the path to big league impact. And that's the path to top 100. So I guess, like, I know Esmeralda Valdez was already flirting with the top 100 for you. What do 8 or 9 homers in the Arizona Fall League do for you?
It's interesting. I think it's actually like a really good question because I'm like every year of the AFL, I think you and I are having conversations of like how do we value this? Like, and I'm just gonna like sometimes just talk at you like and just be like, okay, this is the conundrum here. Like sometimes a player does this and it doesn't matter as much. Other times a player does this and it matters a lot more. I think with Briseño is a great reference point. He was a guy, great power, good bat to ball for a guy of his, size and archetype, but everything was on the ground through the first half of the season. Then he comes back off of injury, and you start to see a small sample in the regular season at the end of him elevating a little bit more. And then you see in the AFL this extrapolated sample of him elevating way more and these massive home run outputs. With Esmerlyn, there's not like a clear cut aspect of his game that I think is like tangibly different than what it was maybe in the early part of the season, the regular season. He was great all year, anyways. But I think it's just this hammering home of a breakout that it's just this like cherry on top, or a little bit more than a cherry. I'd say it's like the icing on the cake here that this breakout in 2025 was valid, and that it's something that he is extrapolating over an extremely large sample. Now we're talking about 137 games where he did it in high A, double A. He started slow and then 900 OPS over the final 20 games, and then now in the AFL, you got to kind of look at how he's responding to certain arms. It doesn't really matter who you throw at him right now. He's comfortable. So now this looks like a guy that's getting into his power at the upper levels and against upper level competition. And that absolutely matters. And that absolutely elevates him.
So, for reference, Josue Briseño last year played 25 games in Scottsdale. He hit 433 with 10 homers in 25 games. Okay, 106 plate appearances, punched out 21 times, walked 15 times. I just want to give you what Esmeralyn Valdez has done in his first 11 games in the Arizona Fall League for Salt River. He has 46 plate appearances under his belt, 8 homers in 46 plate appearances. He's driven in 15. How many hits in 46 plate appearances?
How many hits? Well, we already
Yeah.
got eight. So uh I didn't see him hit a single. So but I'm gonna say 14.
He allegedly has 6 singles. So he's got a double and 6 singles. He's got 15 hits and 46 plate appearances. He's hitting 517. And you say, Jack, how does that make any sense? 15 out of 46. Shouldn't that be like 333? In 11 games and 46 plate appearances, he's walked 15 times. And how many times do you think he's punched out?
I don't remember seeing him punch out either in the games I was at. I'd say he's probably punched out what, 8 times?
5 times.
Oh,
So on top of the 8 homers, he's walked 15 times and he's K'd 5 times in 46 plate appearances. It's 11 games. It's a minute sample, but it's the best 11 game sample we've probably ever seen in the Arizona Fall League. The slash for Esmerlyn Valdez right now through 11 games is 517, 674, 1379. That's a 2053 OPS in 46 plate appearances.
Yeah. Like that's outrageous. And just like for reference of like some of the again, it's not like he's facing all low A arms. Seen Bryce Cunningham a lot. You've seen Corey Avent, who I think is actually one of the more intriguing arms kind of emerging from this AFL. And he hit a single on a fastball like 3 balls in, 97 miles per hour. He's seen Jackson Baumeister a bunch. He's seen Rhett Lauder multiple times. Like he has seen some legit arms. And I mean, as Luke Sennard, Hyun Suk Jang, who he took deep. Like, there's been some John Carlos Lara, like a lot of either upper level guys or stuffy lower level guys. It makes it even more impressive. So, I mean, it's going to be a funny conversation because I think you were going into this year with Esmerlyn Valdez. You almost want to make sure you don't fully overcorrect, but you want to make sure that you're not missing the boat here. This is a guy that was probably, if you asked me before the season, I would have said he's not getting protected in the Rule 5.
Yeah.
And now, not only is he a slam dunk to get protected in the Rule 5, like he's a lot more valuable than that, right? So it's a really interesting conversation here as a guy that's still just 21 years old. So this is one of the more intriguing Arizona Fall League performances. We talked about it, in the episode with Elijah, but he's literally improved across the board. And I think the thing that you mentioned is like the swing decisions. That's the area where it's probably gotten even better in terms of we've seen the EVs up, we've seen the contact rates up, but I think the most drastic adjustment has been those swing decisions. And you combine all those things with the fact that he hits the ball in the air consistently, and you've got a pretty fun player here. And again, I can't wrap my head around the fact that the Pittsburgh Pirates, they got bats developing. I texted our Bucko Banner guys, they host the Pirates podcast here for us at Just Baseball on our network, and I was like, was there like a significant shakeup in the player development infrastructure? Because I can't imagine just how this could shift so dramatically. I think it's a little bit of luck. I think it's a little bit of shakeup, and it's good news for I think the future of the Pirates because they're not going to spend money to improve that offense.
100%. The only other thing that I could throw at you in terms of possibly spending money is all of a sudden, and I don't want to fire up the trade machine on October 24th, but like, why can't Esmerlyn Valdez lead a Taylor Ward package at this point? If Ben Cherington is trying to kind of maintain his status, obviously he's coming back for 26, that caught many by surprise. If he's trying to win right now, which it seems like the Pirates, like, they're there. They have to win in 26. Otherwise, Ben Cherington's out of a job.
Yeah,
They already
yeah.
extended Don Kelly. If he feels the need to win right now, why can't Esmerlyn Valdez headline with two other filler pieces a Taylor Ward
Oh,
deal with Anaheim?
he absolutely could. And I think you could even try to get, other pieces involved there. And you could just talk about like other trades potentially too, where maybe you could go find a bat that's big league ready now if you wanted to go that route because you like all the other young bats. Do you always see the AFL trade, right? Like you always see a couple
Always.
guys that perform there. It's not usually the top performer, but we saw Marcy a little bit later with that happening. A lot of scouts are seeing this firsthand, and I think any teams that now are, having conversations with the Pirates, they're going to check in with, some of their people and say, who do you like? And I think a lot of scouts are going to come back and say, I saw a guy look like Barry Bonds in Arizona. So I think we had a side by side, didn't we? Statistically,
Yeah, we
from the
did.
fall league, we actually did have a Barry Bonds side by side. So, yeah, I think that is an interesting wrinkle in this. Is this a guy that you really want to? Is he now ascended into building block for you, or is he ascended to a point where it's major trade chip? What's undoubtable, or what you can't really deny, is that he's ascended, and he's in a totally different realm than where he was at going into 2025, and that's why this sport rocks.
Yeah, 100%. Who else jumps out to you on the AFL side?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few guys in terms of the hitting side, and it's always tough because it's always going to be more offensively driven. But
Sure.
I think we touched on it briefly. Charlie Pagliarini from the Mariners,
Hmm.
the guy that I was a little bit like hesitant on because of the swing and miss, and I understand it's a small sample, but he's been kind of moving around the diamond, but mostly going to play corner outfield. He is not punching out there right now. And the EVs have always been great. Like he has always hit the ball hard. But now we're seeing Pagliarini, who we'll probably talk about a little bit in this Mariners update, just scorching the ball while not really swinging and missing very much out there. And I think that's huge because you look at the regular season this year, it was an in zone contact rate around 75%. And now I think you've seen the plate discipline better. You've seen him making a little bit more contact against secondaries and just torching fastballs. And on the season, he had an EV90 of 108 miles per hour. And now that you add in the AFL sample, it's up to 109 miles per hour. So this was a player that I'm thinking, okay, maybe a little bit more of a data darling, but is it all going to, work out enough? And now, I mean, you're seeing a little bit more of a simple operation. You're seeing 3-hit contests here. And I do think this is some of the better pitching we've seen in the AFL in the last few years. So I do think offensive performances should hold a little bit more weight. He's played
Yeah.
second. He's played left this year. He's played a little bit of first, but they seem to be focusing on him playing a little bit more left in the AFL, which is interesting because he didn't play much of that at all in the regular season. So just an interesting wrinkle there. The guy that can just hit the living crap out of the ball and maybe at least is playing his way into, some bulk platoon conversation. But again, I saw some really comfortable at bats left on left. Another encouraging performance so far, and this is one where I think the first round pedigree guys who had bad years and they show some good things in the AFL. I always take it with a grain of salt, but think about the alternative. If they struggle really badly, then you can really start to, weigh down their outlook. Seaver King just performing well, I think, is just encouraging. It was a really
Yeah.
rough year for the Nationals prospect, and again, I don't think it changes how you look at the year, but at least it's like, okay, here's some positivity, some momentum going into, the off season and into spring training. Seaver King's hitting 341 with a 1048 OPS in 10 games, a couple homers, which is nice to see. He's getting the ball in the air a little bit more. You've seen his speed be a little bit of a part of his game. And then I think we saw some like sprint speed, like feet per second at around close to 30 feet per second, which is going to put
Wow.
him top couple percentage in Major League Baseball. And then speaking of that, Enrique Bradfield Jr. We talked about him a little bit already in the last episode, but just a little bit more context to what he's doing. He's been bunting a lot too. I think he's been working on that part of his game too, like bunting for a hit, because I think that's a way that he's going to be able to steal some knocks here and there.
Yeah.
The way he's getting out of the box, I think there was a 3-8 down to first base on a bunt for a hit. And I mean that's just elite run times down to first. Sprint speeds of 31 feet per second, and he has made two of the best grabs I think I've seen this year already out there. And when he talked about the defense, obviously with us, and just it's amazing how much he can just continue to get better in that regard. But you're seeing the speed in full force, and I think with hamstring issues, it's just nice to see him turning in elite run times again and trusting those legs with elite run times. But I think that was a big part of I don't know, just what I was a little bit hesitant on when we were talking about the updates. I'm like, okay, Speed Demon that is having hamstring issues. He looks really good right now. I love that bunt aspect to his game now too. He's going to steal hits left and right if he's getting down to first base in 3.75 seconds or 7 seconds. And then I love the adjustments he has made swing wise. And then one last guy that I think has just been really impressive on both sides of the ball is Walker Janek from the Astros.
Mm.
He has looked phenomenal defensively. He had a grand slam the other day, and the bat has looked really good. I think that's a guy where it's like, okay, he had a pretty good year in high A. You figure the numbers are going to tick up a little bit in the AFL. But we talked about him as a high floor guy because of how good the glove is, and just being able to contextualize how good the glove is after seeing a couple games out there and then having the data where he's ripping like 87-mile-per-hour throws down to second base. Like that's clearly a plus, comfortably a plus arm. You're seeing him, now flash a little bit more offensively, where if he's a league average hitter, he's a primary catcher and a good one at the big league level. So just seeing more snippets of what can be, an average bat at the big league level, flashing a little bit more power. But again, just watching the defense, watching the way he moves back there and seeing the arm that he has, that was really impressive to me. And I mean, and I think with a little bit more experience, I mean, he could be turning in some really elite, I think catch and throw, whether it's pop time, just velocity across and throwing out runners in general. He was so good at that this year anyways. Yannick looks like a guy that even if the bat's a little bit behind, could be helping the Astros sooner rather than later.
I had Janek queued up because I kind of did the dive. When you brought up Seaver King, I was like, I wonder if Walker Janek had a disappointing year. No, he was actually pretty good. Do you know how many bags he stole in high A this year?
Yeah, that was the other thing. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yannick, so because we have some access to like the sprint speeds out there.
Yeah.
I know he stole what, 30 bags or 25 bags, something
He
like
was
that.
30 for 32 this year.
So I thought when we did the Astro system, it was
Yeah.
just okay, very opportunistic, probably average runner, maybe slightly above. He's turning in like plus run times out there. So Yannick's a plus runner who's very savvy.
Is he just
Well,
JT Realmuto?
he's got that aspect of his game. There's no doubt about that. So I think that part was really cool.
Yeah.
And it just adds a little bit more value to what he's doing out there.
One more name that I want to throw at you is Charlie Condon. And Condon, in terms of hit accumulation, has been really good so far in the Arizona Fall League. He's only hit one homer. I think everybody's waiting on those like 35 homers we saw in his Golden Spikes year at Georgia. Maybe it comes. Maybe it comes in 2, 3, 4 years, wherever it may come, whenever it may come. But I'm just curious, like what you've seen from Charlie Condon to this point, because it was a disappointing year for him in his first season in minor league baseball. Obviously, he missed some time, but he's back now, and it seems like he's better than most in Arizona right now.
Yeah, no, I think he kind of curtailed that. Like he changed the narrative from disappointing, because it was really disappointing in the pro debut, and then with the injury to okay, well he's starting to look like himself again, and then he ended up turning in a decent season. But I think with him, it was kind of just being able to again extrapolate on that because you saw some really good high A numbers, you saw some decent stretches in double A, but also some tough stretches as well. And just to see him turn in a 5-hit performance, I don't even care what level that is. That's encouraging, which he did in the AFL last week. And just to see, I think, more comfortable at bats and just extrapolate on what was a step forward after such a rough start to his pro career, I think is great. I think you're still seeing more of the same though. And it's kind of what we talked about. What we talked about him was like, I think now he looks instead of a guy that I think free fell from his draft reports, which I think was a little bit of an overcorrection by the industry. I think we're seeing the guy that we kind of always thought he would be, at least like with us. We were talking about how he stacked up in the draft class, which is hammer fastballs, hammer hangers, and then he's if you execute some breaking balls, he's going to chase them and he's going to swing and miss at them. And but what we're seeing from him now is he's recognizing them a little bit better now. And I think that's been huge, especially just in the small sample in the AFL. Only 15% chase rate on sliders. I think that's really important because his path is just not going to be conducive to hammering sliders consistently if they're well located. He doesn't go the other way that great. But that's the other thing that I've seen out there is he's actually been going the other way a little bit better too. So those are all encouraging aspects of a guy I think that still took a step forward and had a nice finish overall. And the fact that I think he's just playing first base now is helpful for him as well. Not worrying about the glove and left at third, whatever it may be. And I think now with the strong AFL and if he can ride that momentum into I think improvements in Double A next year as well, could be a guy that gets up and helps them sometime next season. A couple arms real quick too. We talked
Yeah.
Anderson Brito, I think a little bit last episode. I don't know if we did. I know I wrote him up in my AFL notes. He looks disgusting. The Astros prospect, the fastball sitting 98, slider has been just wicked. Like, and I think that for him is like if he can, or it's really like a curveball, but then he's got a slider as well. It's kind of like a slurvy curveball. The shapes are inconsistent, but man, does he look good. And I hope they can stretch him out a little bit more. I mean, that's the highest upside pitching prospect in that system. And then Hagen Smith, I mean, you take the small wins given how disappointing of a season it was for him. Yes, 5 walks in 9 innings for the White Sox prospect, but he has struck out 16. And I mean, 5 walks in 9 innings, given how bad it was at points for him, you'll take. It's got to
Yeah.
be a little bit better, obviously, in the grand scheme, but it is a step forward, given where Hagen Smith was at, just to see him healthy, throwing the ball well, and I mean, just missing bats left and right. It's really just fastball slider though, and I still it's just seeming more and more like reliever, which is concerning. But at least now you're seeing a guy that you can look at and say, well, the fallback can at least be a high leverage relief arm here.
And at this point, you probably have to shelf the third pitch. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying forever. I'm just saying for the next year or so, you have to be able to throw strikes with a fastball and slider before you try and add something else. The bedrock needs to be solid, and the bar needs to be high enough that's probably big league caliber, and then you push beyond that.
100%. I totally agree. And then I think we both saw Jackson Baumeister, and he's battled walk issues out there, but the stuff looks like fully there again. For the Rays prospect, and yeah. What did you think when you saw Baumeister? I felt like with him, the fastball was getting a lot more vert again, and they're using big league
Yeah.
balls out there, and you just saw life on the stuff. The breaking ball looked good. He's got the assortment of offerings. but it's almost like he's got the stuff moving in too many different directions now, and he got 7 walks and 5 2/3. He got 7 punchies as well, and again, when we saw him, it looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that took us by surprise were the carry numbers that we saw on
Yeah.
that fastball. It's like, wow, I was not expecting that release height and that carry. Like, we were watching the data come in real time during his start, and you were saying that's a 70 heater. That's a
Yeah.
70 heater, and like he was throwing like it was a 70 heater that go round. Does it settle into a 60 heater, a 65 heater? Maybe, but the stuff was a little bit more electric than I think anybody
Yeah.
thought Jackson Baumeister would have the stuff looking like when he was really on at Florida State. It felt like electric wasn't the right word. It just felt like he was mature. He
Hmm.
was, a little bit more seasoned than anybody else in the ACC and in college baseball. I think now we're seeing electricity start to flutter into his game. And it's just a matter of like marrying the two because
Yep.
where did the seasoned vet, where did the pitchability, the maturity go? You've got electric stuff now. Let's hone in both of them. And then that becomes maybe a top 100 prospect on the mound.
Yep. Absolutely. It's just a matter of filling it up a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, the stuff looks as good as it has looked. And I think that's a really encouraging wrinkle. And same with Luis Perales, who we talked about. But the Red Sox prospect is just throwing fuel out there. And it's probably going to be on the top 100 list on the mere fact that he is healthy. So
Yep.
we'll check in again on the AFL a little bit more detailed as we get a little bit larger samples here because we did miss some games off the top. So we're still kind of working with small samples despite being, late in October relative to what we're used to. But before we get to the Mariners update and some of the big movers in there, a quick break.